Gever Shum Davar. Are we living in the pre-Moshiach age? He calls me Ronnie. I actually like my name. It's Ronan Levi Yitzchak, but you can abbreviate any way you want. Another thought and questions. Upon the major cataclysms taking place, awful natural disasters, and the fact that once the world, the U.S., the EU, and the Quartet, and NATO, started pressuring Israel to surrender her God-given territory, a financial cataclysm is now unraveling throughout the world. Strange thought, but do you think Mashiach is nearing? Would you make a video on the subject? It's not a strange thought, and it's not something... I think this is a thought that's ingrained in every single human being. An idea that we are eventually getting towards a time of living on a planet with world peace and an end of economic disparity. This is something, a hope which I think is found in every single human being, as much as they try to push it off intellectually with all types of objections. This is something that we can't escape. It's just part of our psyche. And you can put a label Mashiach on it, and then it becomes a Jewish concept. Or you could put the label Messiah and make it into the warped version that it's been here for 2008 years or 9 years and it's going to come back. The Jewish concept is once it happens, there's no more war, there's no more economic disparity, we're all in the same wavelength, we're all happy. And within the Muslim world, there's a difference of opinion, I think, but I'm definitely not an expert. But I don't trust my own opinion on these things because I don't know anything about the world around me. I barely know what's going on in my own psyche at times. I definitely know what's going on in other people's psyches. So for me to have some kind of opinion as to what's going on in the world, that's a stretch. But I will tell you, when the Alter Rebbe wrote Tanya, and the Alter Rebbe is someone I give complete credence to, I would back anything he says, and I have. And although I have disagreed with him, I still back it, meaning when I myself don't agree with a point in Tanya, I know that the flaw in this intellectual debate is within me, it's not within the Alter Rebbe. So he writes, and he disappeared from this planet in 1812, mind you. He writes that he hears the footsteps of Mashiach. The footsteps of Mashiach. This was, he must have written around 1800. Maybe 1796, I think, was when Tanya was published. But anyway, okay, 7 generations later, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, after the disappearance of his predecessor in 1950, he takes the mantle of leadership, announcing, all the seventh are to be praised. I've come to my garden, which was the previous Rebbe's last mimer, granted. But basically, there was a famous non-Chassidish man who saw this, who saw this essay, this kuntras, and he said, this person speaking thinks he's Mashiach. And I would say rightfully so. This was a man who did come from the Maharal of Prague, who did trace the lineage back to David HaMelech himself. And I forget how. I think through Hillel. I'm not sure. But either way, he was a person who fought the wars of God. He was a person who brought many Jews back into Teshuvah. And this was, and he had this little concept of 7. And within his own little world, Lubavitch had 7 Admorim. Now they have the 7th one, the 7th Rebbe. Within the Chassidic world, he was on the 9th. He was number 9 from the Baal Shem Tov. But within Lubavitch, they had, and he compared him to the 7, there's famous 7 shepherds of Israel. There's Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, David, and Shlomo. These are the 7, princes, the 7 shepherds. So he compared, I think, in a way, maybe not such a humble way, but these were great men. These were geniuses. These were tzaddikim. And he himself included. And then after his wife passed away in 1998, he said Shloshim. He said Shiva, and he observed Shloshim. And then by Beis Nisan of that year, he said the famous Sikha of the Indian of saying Yechia Melech, long live the king. And he said this was in relation to Beis Nisan, to the Yahrzeit of the Rebbe Rashab. And he said that basically when King David would come out, the Sanhedrin a lot of times disapproved, and he had enemies within the Jewish world. But the populace, he was very wildly popular. They knew he was going to war for them, and he knew that he was successful and God had blessed him. He was a mighty, fierce warrior. Apparently he was also very attractive. And they would say, Yechia Melech, long live the king. And the Rebbe said this, and from there was born eventually the expression, the Chassidim, Lubavitch Chassidim especially, would say, Yechi, and assuming that their Rebbe was Mashiach himself, because it made perfect sense. Adonenu, in Admar is Adonenu, Adon Adon, Mara, and Rebbe, a master, a teacher, and a Rebbe. So they say Yechi Adoneinu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu, and we say Melech HaMashiach Le'olam Vad. It was, they kind of stretched out this expression Yechi HaMelech, and they would say it in front of the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would encourage it. There's one video that I was walking, and he encouraged it with his hand as they're singing Yechi, and they still say it many to this day. Not many, okay, I don't want to get political, but some still say it to this day. My point in bringing this up is from about 1998, after his wife passes away, and maybe fast forward to Nisan of that year, till about 1992, if you look at his collected talks, you will see, I mean, a clear message resonating within almost every single one of the talks, at least mentioned once, at least in a preferable way, I mean, somehow, that these are the days of Mashiach, that he's sure of it, that there's nothing stopping Mashiach, everything is done. He says one time, in previous generations, what stopped Mashiach is that the service of the Jews wasn't done. In our generation, the service of the Jews is already completed. And this is something that I, on my own, can get wildly optimistic about almost anything. Sometimes I'm easily excitable. It's just a character flaw of mine. But for the Rebbe to say this, and the Rebbe understands what's going on in the world, and the Rebbe has the sight of a tzaddik, and he could see the world in a way that I would find confounding or confusing. And he says these words, and he says it week after week after week, up until literally his stroke. By Zach Adar of 1992, after which we never heard another word from the Rebbe, and then another stroke a year later, exactly on Zach Adar again, and then Gimel Tammuz. And this was 14 years ago now, Gimel Tammuz, which is his Yom Hilula, whatever you want to say, the day he disappeared physically from the world. But for the Rebbe to say this, I don't have to give you my opinion. Is this the pre-Mashiach age? With the Alter Rebbe and the Rebbe, and I would say absolutely yes. And I don't look to the natural disasters. Disasters come and go. But I look to the advancements made in technology. Because now with the internet especially, and with basically communication, knowing very little borders and very little filters and boundaries. In China it still exists. Somewhere it still exists. Basically we have access to share information and communicate with all parts of the globe. And so it's only a matter of time to become more sensitive to the people in the other parts of the globe until we make sure that their needs are being met physically like our needs are being met, and until we decide to share information and share resources and technology as opposed to compete with each other. I think it's only a matter of time, and I think it's ingrained within human nature that this is the way things are supposed to be. I think you'll find that human nature is similar across the board, regardless of religion or race or however you want to compartmentalize human beings. We're all the same in the end. We all have the same passions, the same desire, the same longing, the same yearning. We're the same. We're human beings. And I think it's only a matter of time until world leaders sit down and somehow eradicate war from this planet. I know it sounds far-fetched, but it's literally not. This is something that back in the 1960s they were discussing in a real serious way. And it's something that's never disappeared, this desire, this hope. And that's what Moshiach is. It's the end of warfare. And it's the end of economic disparity. Once that is done, and you'll see it's tied into the fact that we have to make sure that everyone on the planet has their economic needs taken care of. Their physical needs, their food and their shelter and their clothing. Once they're provided for, everyone, like even in the Congo, even in all the parts of Africa, once we take care of that, then you'll see the global tension reside, and you'll see like things get much more calm as opposed to tense, and things